Good evening. This is Chicago Computer Society Linux SIG 2 for February 28th, 2023. And tomorrow's already March. Holy mackerel. Anyway, tonight I'm going to try and get through a lot of stuff, and I have a handout, I hope. That depends on powers beyond my control at the moment, if I can't keep systems running. Anyway, at the moment, oops, hang on a minute. I gotta join this again. God damn it, will you hold still? I hate it when these computers decide to do something on their own. Yay. Oh, yep. Another passcode. Oh, yeah. What a night. And now I got to admit myself again. Anyway. All right. Generally speaking, with tonight's meeting, I'm going to try again to see if I can get, hang on, get you folks working on getting a working system. At the moment, hey, I got another one. I'm not sure about Peter, but Wayne has an up and running system. Peter, do you have a up and running Linux system?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. I'd like the two of you to briefly discuss how much of a hassle was it trying to get Linux up and running on your systems? Wayne, how about you first?
Okay. Well, I got it on, with your instructions, but I didn't have enough space. You were supposed to break it up. Finally, I ended up doing it actually from the Mint website, and it automatically set up, gave you opportunities to set the different partitions, that sort of thing. But it took me two or three times of doing it before I finally got it to finally working.
Well, hopefully you learn through your failures. That's the whole point. You
Right.
Learn better by failing and understanding what went wrong. But I have a suspicion you have a single partition, not
No.
three partitions.
No, let me pull it up and I'll show you.
All right.
Let me look up here. Let's see, that is what's our partition program? Oh, it's Gpart, right?
Yeah, Gparted would show you,
Let me find their Gparted.
and then you'd have to do a share screen.
Yeah, just let me get it. Okay, let me show you the share screen. Can you see that?
No, you're not sharing yet.
Oh, wait. Here we go.
There you go. Okay.
Can you see it?
Yep. Okay, good. You got the three partitions.
Yeah, like I said, it took me, I don't know, 2 or 3, 4 times before I finally got it set up like this.
Would you say it was, shall we say, a nightmare, or was it?
No, it wasn't a nightmare. It was just, I finally ended up going to the internet, and I went out to the Linux Mint website, and when I loaded it in, it sort of gave you all these options as you when you first started to load it in.
Now, is that an SSD?
Yes, it's a
Okay. Let me stop you there.
300. It's a 350 gigabyte
Oh, okay, but
SSD.
I'll tell you right now, your swap partition is way overboard, and
No, I know.
you have no provisioning. What you'd have to do in G parted later, you have to delete the swap, make it no more than about 4 gigabytes in size, and you can increase the size of either partition 1 or 2, but you may have to move things over.
Yeah, I
That's
think that's what happened. It was way too small when I first started.
Well, even I've got some systems with only 2 to 3 gigabytes, and that's more than enough as long as you have about 8 gigs of memory or better. Now, if you have 4 gigs of memory, then you might need 5 to 6 gigs of swap space.
No, I've got 8 gigs because I updated my memory.
All you
I
need
up,
is
up,
about 3 gigabytes then at tops.
yeah, I updated the memory and I updated the drive. You know, I replaced that the hard drive with the SSD. I think it was like $35 for the 250 gig I bought at Micro Center.
Okay. Okay, can you stop sharing? And Peter,
Yeah.
can you speak a little bit on your setup?
Uh,
Okay, so when we put them all in together, it works.
What do you
So I
mean?
haven't had any problem there with the basic system working.
Okay,
I haven't had the time to actually add some of the applications
right.
that I want to put in there, and that's where I think I'm going to have my issues, maybe,
Could be.
because some of them are weird.
Okay. Anybody else? Well, Bob, you've been up and running for a while, but that leaves Dennis. You haven't done anything yet? Apparently, he's waiting for the tooth fairy, when it comes up to about $45 a tooth. And that's what they're projecting for, I think, 2050. So all you got to do is wait till 2050, pull all your teeth, and you'll make a little fortune. All right. Anyway, I'm gonna start the meeting. I got a PowerPoint. I am not good at PowerPoints. I normally don't do PowerPoints, and this one here is a blockbuster for any PowerPoint I've ever done. And it's not really a PowerPoint. This is LibreOffice Impress, but I put it in PowerPoint format, and I have a PDF of it. So I'm gonna attempt to do a share. I gotta play games here.
I got a question. Can you guys hear the floor fan?
No,
Okay.
and I've got a headset on. Okay. This is me and my attempt at trying to go back and try and get more people on board Linux, at least in a learning environment. So I have here 2 ways of learning Mint learning environment on a Windows or a Mac computer. I am gearing this towards Windows, but a lot of it applies to somebody that's got a Mac. So you have to bear with me. For some reason that didn't work. Oops. Okay. Boy, I don't know what the delay was, but anyway, options. First option, using a flash drive with a desired Linux and This can be used to install Linux on any computer with an HDD or an SSD drive. But it can also be used as a live learning environment with some limitations. The limitations have to do with the fact that this is not an installed version. It's on a flash drive, and its primary purpose is either A, to install that Linux distro on a computer, or B, you use it as a tool to recover Windows, possibly a Mac, and or another Linux environment. But you don't have any login. There's no master password that's required. But also, too, the normal flash drive only, I'm going to call it read-only. Basically meaning that you can run it live on the flash drive, but it doesn't normally save anything. So my idea here is to show you how to make one with some persistent storage, so that when you go into the live as a learning environment, you can set up your Wi-Fi and have it remember the settings, so you don't have to set that up every time you try and go into the flash drive as a learning environment. And there's other settings that you might want to do, basically speaking. Option number 2, using a virtual machine to install the OS, and on a host computer you are sharing resources between the virtual machine and a host machine. This means you got to have reasonable horsepower, or you're not going to like either one of these options because they can run too slow. For example, for the flash drive, you want a USB flash drive, and you want a computer that you can plug it into a USB 3 port to get the best speed. And flash drives don't run anywhere near as fast as an SSD. They might run a little faster than an HDD, but it's not going to be by much. If you've got only 2 cores on your computer with no hyper-threading, that means one core has to be dedicated to the host, one for your virtual machine, and then you take the memory, and in many cases you divide it by 2. If you only got 4 gigs on the machine, that means 2 gigs to the host, 2 gigs to the flash drive, or the virtual machine, and you're not going to like the results. If you got 2 cores with hyper-threading, or you have 4 cores, it always will perform much better, but you also need 8 gigs of memory. Having Linux installed on the internal drive, HDD will work, but compared to an SSD, that's a big difference. You also have to know the host controller of your hard drive, whether it's an SSD or a spinning hard drive. Why? Because there are 3 versions of the controller, and for a SATA drive. And SATA 3 is the fastest. SATA 2 is half the speed of SATA 3. And SATA 1 is half the speed of SATA 2. So if you got too old a hardware, you're going to have slower performance. That's another reason why you got to get an installed version. But temporarily, you can use a flash drive. You can use a virtual environment if you got the right machine. So these are the 2. I'm starting off. First option, you need a flash drive, 16 gigabytes up to 32, and there are provisos later on that will come up in red. You need a Linux ISO image. I'd get into that. you need Rufus Portable, which for the full features has to run on Windows 10. It does not work full featured on 11, and I did not test 8.1. So, the thing is, I put it on my desktop computers and laptops. You can also put Rufus Portable on any flash drive and run it from there, so that you can take that flash drive machine to machine without taking up the minuscule space the program takes up on your internal machine. And so to me, it's a waste of time putting it on a flash drive. If you want to, there is now some versions, you got to get the updated versions of Ventoy, I think, if I remember right, and Yummy, that now have persistent storage capability for your images. So that's something else to think about. All right, getting your Linux ISO is going to be the first thing that I'm going to talk about here. In your browser, in a tab, go to distrowatch.com, select Mint, scroll down to the versions available, and select the top version, the latest one, which is 21.1 for Mint. Select the desktop version you want. Notice I have in parentheses DE. It means desktop edition, such as Cinnamon, Mate, and XFCE, which standard Mint has each of those versions. You got to decide which one you want. So here's distrowatch.com, and I'm pointing with an arrow to Mint in the left side there. I would click on Mint, and it will then take me to Mint being selected. It shows you the top of the page, and what I do is scroll down, and here's my distribution releases, and the first one is the latest, 21.1. It won't kill you to download the second one, 21.0, because you can update it after you update the 21.0 version. Then you can upgrade it to 21.1 through system reports. So the next thing is here is when I click on that 21.1 or the 21, I get this screen here. And down at the bottom, I'm highlighting in a different color. You have here the Mint 21 Cinnamon Edition. If you want the Mate version, which is old-fashioned GNOME, this is the one you want here. If you want the lightest version, this is 21.1 XFCE desktop. It's a bit bland, but depending on the horsepower of your machine, you have to gear your desktop environment to give you the best performance, because otherwise you may overload the computer you're trying to run it on. Dennis, you wouldn't have the problem with that Optiplex 3050. Trust me. And like I've mentioned before, you can put Windows on it. It doesn't cost you a thing. The license is in the computer. It's an automatic thing. But I'm telling you right now, to do the Linux, you need to probably take out a 3.5-inch drive and replace it with an SSD. I've got that on my 3020 and the 3010. Next, get the Rufus Portable. In your browser, go to softpedia.com. Search for Rufus Portable. Click on the search result. See the info of Rufus. You might want to read it first, and then click your Download Now button. Select the Softpedia Secure Download US site, leave in the download folder the file that gets downloaded. In File Explorer, go to the download folder, find Rufus, right click it, and create a shortcut by it's near the bottom of the context menu. Drag and drop the Rufus shortcut from File Explorer to your desktop in an empty space. So here's softpedia.com. In the search field, I put Rufus Portable. Select the search results by clicking down on Rufus Portable 3.21. And ultimately, I click on the download now, and it shows me several download sites. If you ever see on Softpedia ones in red, those are for paid versions if you want to get a paid license version. Otherwise, the ones in blue are the ones you want. And my guess here is the second one is an external mirror, probably outside the US. The third one is for the previous version of the portable app, version 3.20 instead of 3.21. The bottom one is for somebody who's still running XP and Vista who wants Rufus Portable. I think they need their head examined, but that's my own opinion. As a tech, I do have XP. I don't have the Vista. I have 7, 8.1, 10, 11, and umpteen versions of Linux. From the Debian base to the Red Hat RPM base to the Arch Linux bases. Anyway, open File Explorer, click on Downloads, and in the Downloads folder, find the Rufus. Right click on it, and it gives you the context menu. Near the bottom it says create a shortcut. Click it. And you end up with a shortcut sitting there. And all you have to do is left click and hold on the shortcut and drag it off to an empty space on your desktop. And it works. And this is basically what I'm showing you here. I dragged it off, and it's showing you everything but the capital R for Rufus there as a shortcut. That's what the icon looks like, a type of flash drive. Putting Linux on the flash drive. Now this gets to be a little bit of fun. Hang on for one moment. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to change my view. Okay. I have to change the view because this is starting to get in my way. And there it is. Oh, you did it again. It's not giving me my options. Okay. That's new. There it is. Good. Just okay. Anyway, I got to get back to there. Putting Linux on a flash drive. Open Rufus by double-clicking the desktop shortcut and enter your admin password. It's required. Insert your flash drive into the USB port. USB 3, both for the flash drive and port, are desired. If you're only making a installation version of Linux to put Linux on other machines, a USB 2 flash drive will work just fine. It's a tad slower, but you're not going to care. I'm saying 3 because you might want to use this as a live version to be able to do some practicing of Linux if you don't have a running Linux system. Next, to the select button, only on Windows 10, you get a select button with a down arrow next to it. It's an option to download current and old versions of Windows 11, 10, 8.1, and 7. 10's got a lot of versions. It goes back to the very first released version, 1507. It's not a joke. If you got an old, I've recently updated a few old machines. I couldn't get up to 22H2. I had to get some older versions greater than the one I was on, but less than 22H2, and upgrade to that. Then I was able to upgrade to the 22H2 because I have machines I just haven't had time to get to. Click on the select button and see Explorer view of the ISO files. If you don't see your file, you can explore to find the location. Click on the ISO file and select open. Why do I say this? I normally am running in standard user mode. Some stuff I download goes into the standard users download folder, but some items go into the administrator's account download folder. And so it's a case where you might have to go into that download folder in order to get to the ISO image you download. Not a joke. I discovered this years ago. Notice a new line appears below your selected file name that says persistent partition size. It's set at 0 by default. Warning. I did an experiment already, so trust me when I say this. Warning to keep a persistent partition to a minimum, like 1 to 2 gigabytes. As a larger one, as it gets bigger and bigger, slows the whole operation down. Understand, the ISO image you put on the flash drive, you don't want to update the OS like you do an installed version. That's part of what slows you down to a crawl. You don't want to put on a lot of programs. You want to keep it to a bare minimum. And frankly, unless you got a real good performing system with a lot of horsepower, you don't even want to put Zoom on the flash drive. It'll be a killer. In virtual environment, you'll get away with it as long as you got decent horsepower. But otherwise, the installed version is needed for almost any computer to really run Zoom well enough that you can get things done. So these are some of the things I learned. You also have the option to change the flash drive label. And in some cases, especially for Windows versions you download and flash, you might want to consider doing that so you can identify whether it's Windows 10 or 11 and what version number. Not a joke. This is a headache when you leave the default label for Windows. It's not so bad on Linux. Click the start button to begin doing the flash. So, Rufus, the first time, click the update policy icon, which the arrow is pointing to. Down on the bottom left, the third icon is for the update policy. So I come down here. Here's the update policy. Note I'm pointing to the label check for updates. It's disabled. This is the normal default. What you want to do is click on that little down arrow right here so that you can change it to daily. And you have to do that to get full feature. Then after change policies, after you change that policy to daily, hit that close button on the update policy, then click the close button on Rufus and relaunch Rufus. Then you will see this screen here. And this is the initial screen before you do anything. Now this is the same screen again. It starts pointing out things. Ignore the boot selection. It was how I did the screenshot. But normally it would say select a distro. So you have select button. Next to it is a down arrow. If on a running version I click that down arrow, it gives you two options, select and download. If I select download, it shows me only Windows versions now. You start off by saying Windows 11. You can change that to 10, 8.1, or 7. Then it asks you more and more questions to get it refined to what you want. It used to also do Linux, but they dropped that apparently at some point. I don't know when. Right below boot selection is the new persistent partition size. This is the only way you see it is on the portable version running on 10. Then I show down below the volume label. As you can see, it's going to put a volume label on the flash drive of Linux Mint 21.1. Well, it's too long. If you look at the flash drive under Windows, you might be able to tell it's Linux Mint. And that's probably not much more than that you're going to see in the label. But at least you know what's on that drive. I have lots of these drives. I have lots of Linux and Windows versions. Knowing what it is on the drive without having to start up running it is a big boom. So it's a big deal as far as I'm concerned. Starting flashing your ISO, change the volume label if you wish, click the start button. Anything on the flash drive will be erased. Back up anything you want before you use the drive. This is a common practice for flashing any drives. When you are flashing a drive for rescue media like in Macro Reflect, Rufus, Etcher, they all do the same thing. Whatever's on the flash drive that you stick in, it assumes is garbage and is going to blow it all away. Then you will start flashing whatever it is you want to put on it now. But anything that you wanted that was on that drive is gone, period. So I always use dedicated drives that are 16, no more than 32 gigabytes in size. That way I don't have other stuff on them that I might want to still keep, and I have to back it up first before I do the flashing operation. And so this is an important point. Warning, on the live flash drive, keep the persistent partition to a minimum. Like I say, 1 to 2 gigs. You're not going to need much to save settings, and even if you want to, you can load on Zoom, but you better have a pretty good system to make it run well. A USB flash drive that's version 3 and a USB 3 port. If you don't have those ingredients, you might want to skip Zoom. Here's the thing. If you don't have persistent on a live drive, if you change the date time on the flash drive, it's going to forget it every time you shut down. So when you come back up, you got to set it again and again and again. With persistent storage, set it once, it remembers it. Same for Wi-Fi settings, and there are other miscellaneous changes you might want to make, but this has to be thought of as strictly a practice setup that you can start exercising Linux and learn how to use Linux before you get to the point of setting it up on an internal drive on a computer. So then changing Rufus to the persistent size, realistic size. Click the start button. Mint will begin installing, and at first blows away anything that's on the drive, formats the drive, and then puts your choice of Linux on it and creates a persistent partition. So if you go into gparted, you will see two partitions, one containing your ISO image of Linux, not the ISO file, but the content of the ISO file on one partition, and a small partition for your persistent storage Linux will use.
Why don't you want to upgrade? In other words, upgrade the OS.
Okay, a fair question. I created one, and you see the screen right now. This is a real number. I set mine all the way to maximum. First off, when you install a Linux ISO on the flash drive, you don't always know what the size is going to be on the drive. Therefore, you don't know how much free space you've got, and the easiest thing to do is to flash the drive with 0. Go into File Explorer. Go find the flash drive down in the bottom left of your list of drives. Right click there, get the properties, and under properties it'll give you a graphical display and tell you how much free space you got on that drive.
Yeah.
Then you come back into Rufus, still running with your flash drive still plugged in, and you can change the persistent partition size to anything you want. I have a drive sitting over there with 11 gigabytes on it. I did the update to, and this was version 21. This is not 21.1. It put all that out there, but I had a problem. It died in the middle. I tried to restart the upgrade. It says I can't do it, and they give you the command. You have to put in a special command, and it picked up where it stopped, and then finishes. It did finish the install, but it runs like a dog. I mean, a bad one. So it's like suicide.
Okay.
You never update the image unless you're flashing a new version, such as, since I did the original flash with 21.0, if I want something better, then I would get a copy of 21.1 and flash it again. And then have only 1 to 2 gigabytes of persistent space. That's just to save the settings for the changing of the clock time, for your Wi-Fi settings, things like that. It's real simple. You either avoid suicide or you get realistic. And you want to minimize what is saved to make it run as fast as possible. All right, so there it is, and I clicked on the start button. It did exactly what I asked it to do. Now I've recreated it with 1 gigabyte of persistent storage, and I not only did some of the updating, I put Zoom on it. I had to show you a running flash drive in a Zoom conference means that I have to have Zoom running on that Linux. It runs because I kept the persistent down. I only put that one program on, and it's on a decent running system, so you can see what the flash drive really looks like outside of my images in this presentation. booting Mint from the flash drive. I can't show you everything. For starters, the BIOS. There is no standardization of what BIOS is and its format. There's no standardization of what the boot key is, not only from manufacturer to manufacturer, but also within models within a manufacturer. And I ain't joking when I say that. I got too many machines, and trust me, I have seen some nightmares. So basically, you have to do research for that specifically for your machine. And I give you a search value here. What is the boot key for? Eliminate the parentheses and wording, but you're going to put in like HP space the model. One off the top of my head that I do actually have. 15-F222WM. And the search results come back, tell me what my hotkey is for the boot key menu. And you need this in many instances to be able to boot the flash drive up, because it gets down into the third line here. Some BIOS do not allow boot up a device sequence. Some of them do, a lot of them do, but I've run across some that have none. And I can make on those machines USB device first, CD DVD drive second, if I've got one, and the internal hard drive or SSD next. But it helps with booting to external drives with out a boot menu key. If you can't figure out how to change your BIOS and boot sequence, then you have to use the boot menu key. Otherwise, your system will always boot up to the internal hard drive. Some Linux distros try to be compatible with systems set up for UEFI. However, some of them you have to disable the secure boot, and some you have to actually go all the way to change the computer from UEFI mode to legacy mode to do BIOS booting to get your Linux up and running on the flash drive. Trust me, I can't walk you through it. There are too many BIOS out there and too many setups of boot menu keys. It's not funny. One key extra that sometimes works, not always, it'll give you a short boot menu as you're trying to boot up the computer, and that's the escape key. But it doesn't work on all machines. It only works on some. So it's a possibility that key will give you a short boot menu that will allow you to boot from your flash drive instead of the internal hard drive. Booting up Linux Mint flash drive, I can't show you the boot sequence screens. I've got some samples in another area, but basically I have no way of right now of recording screens until I have it all the way up and running. And especially in a Zoom conference. You got to remember, you got to have a running system with Zoom installed to join a Zoom conference. So how do you see any screens from the time you boot up off of the system to that point where you're part of the Zoom conference and show people what you got? So you have to keep that in mind. This is one of the problems I haven't overcome yet. The screens following show some of the flash environment. It usually runs slower due to compressed files on the flash drive of that ISO content, and is slower than an SSD, which is recommended. An installable version shows you an icon on the desktop to facilitate installing Linux on an internal HD or SSD. That's one of the tip-offs. If you see the install icon, you are running from an installable flash drive. The last thing, there are no login screens for the flash drive. So there's no password needed for things that require a password, like requiring the first sudo command to update resources in a command line terminal once your password. Well, there is none. So it's not going to ask you for it. It just goes and does it. That can be dangerous. But at the same time, too, there's a lot of things in an installed version you cannot do in a flash drive. So this is only a stepping stone. Think of it that way. The environment. So this is the first screen from a booted up flash drive. And you see in the upper left area, the install mint install icon that I was talking about. But I want to point you down here to the red arrow. It's pointing to this little icon down here at the bottom. That's your communications. And there is none. Now, if the computer you are booting up from has Ethernet cable that's live and plugged into that computer, it will try and establish the connection and likely it will work, period. So that's a difference. On this machine, it's a laptop, therefore I don't have Ethernet plugged in, though I could do it. But I do want to set up Wi-Fi. That's coming a little bit after this. This is the start button when the system settings button is highlighted. That's the third one on the left from the top. And why do I want that? If you look at the bottom left corner of the panel line, it says 2053. Now that might be right and it might not be right. But you got to remember, you don't know what time zone that time is reflecting versus your time zone. Furthermore, it's military time, and a lot of people don't like military time. They want a standard 12-hour clock. So I get into that. This is where persistence comes in. So I click on that one icon on the prior screen, and I'm pointing here to the date time icon. Click it. This is what comes up. And it shows you the globe. Because the top section, you have to set up your region and city. That determines your time zone. And that affects your clock. So what I did was, I didn't manually put the down arrow and select America. I didn't download and select Chicago. I put my cursor pointer up here. I hit the left click button, and it says, oh, America, Chicago. I'm now in the right time zone. Now, unless you like the military time, what you may also want to do is turn off this use 24-hour clock, and it defaults to 12 hours. Below this is display the date. If you want that, turn it on. I don't think too many people want display seconds and display first day of the week. Some people say Sunday is the first day of the week. Some people say Monday is the first day of the week. Float your boat. I don't care what is the first day of the week for you. You pick your own. I usually leave it off. Internet setup. This is another one where persistence comes into play to remember your Wi-Fi setup. And some of it can be also done on an Ethernet cable connection. If you're using Ethernet cable, it just works. Most likely, if you want to install Wi-Fi, then you got to go through this setup process. So, I get back to this screen here. I'm pointing down to that icon down there. I click on it. Now, the icon changed from that earlier screen because when I took this snapshot, I was using Ethernet cable. And that icon there means that I had an Ethernet connection. But anyway, I click on that icon and I get, whoops, I went too far, I think. No, okay, never mind. I'm in the right spot. You have to select your Wi-Fi connection. 4 of these are mine because I have 2 routers and 2 frequencies per router. Anyway, I select one of them by just clicking on it. And the first thing that comes up is it wants the WPA passphrase for that connection, and it's usually a unique value per router per frequency. If you've got the same passphrase for both 2.4 and 5 gigahertz, one of them you should change. I'm not joking. So I type in my passphrase here. This is something that will be saved in persistent storage. I always add to my networks a DNS that is secure and provides faster lookups of your URL addresses for web pages. ISP does support your DNS servers, but they are usually very slow in responding, especially when there's heavy traffic on that ISP. If I use one of 5 service sites that are open source, and that includes Google, I can get faster resolution and get to my web page much quicker. There's 2 lines. It's primary address and a secondary address that have to be put in. And I give you the instructions there, and I'll show you the screens. So, the next part, most Wi-Fi connections, after you put in that passphrase, will work. But you're using the DNS of your ISP, which can make your web page response slower. So I always add the connections in. There is IPv4 and IPv6. My systems have always been on IPv4. I don't have a need for IPv6 addresses. I give you in a little bit here my site that I use most often, and they have out there the IPv6 addresses if you need them. This is basically the same steps for adding DNS to a wired Ethernet connection as well. So on some of my systems, especially the desktops, some of them have both Ethernet and Wi-Fi. Same on some of my laptops. But a lot of the desktops only have Ethernet, and a lot of the laptops have only Wi-Fi. So I could have 2 different settings for Ethernet and for Wi-Fi, and I'll set them up with DNS addresses. So the first thing I do is on this screen here, by clicking that connection again, and I'm selecting network settings. I come into the one Wi-Fi that I had selected and gave the passphrase for. It now shows a little gear. You click on the little gear and it brings up a screen like this that I can't show you it here, but security would show you the screen where you put in the passphrase that it's going to remember. And there is an option there to reveal what you typed in. This is standard pretty much across all OSs. Then I click the IPv4 and I get this screen. So what I am, and basically it's the same thing for IPv6, but what I put in these two screens is very different. We put in a 4-octet number for the primary and the secondary addresses for DNS. For IPv6, it's 5 hexadecimal values, 5 or 6, I don't remember off the top of my head. And you have to put them in with semicolons instead of periods. So what I did next is I stuck in the primary address. I have this memorized. I've done it so many damn times. So I put in 208.67.222.222. This is opendns.com. And then I click the positive sign. On some Linuxes, you don't have this layout format. What you have to do is, after I put in that last 2, you have to put in a comma, space, and then the secondary address. That completes one line of both addresses on some versions of Linux. I'm just giving you a heads up. So there's the secondary address I put in. When I'm done with that, I hit the apply button and it brings me right back to this, and I just close the window. Now, on if I'm in the drive as a live session to start learning Linux, I start playing with it. But at some point in time, I'm going to need to shut down the computer altogether, or I am going to restart the computer to bring up the host OS, probably Windows, but it could be Mac OS. And in either case, when you do a shutdown or you do a restart, Mint will eventually come back with a message to remove your media, which is your flash drive, out of the USB port and press the enter key, and it will complete the shutdown or the restart operation and bring up your Windows or Mac operating system. So I'm going to try a little bit of a demo. Mind you, there's a lot of things I had to do just to be able to show you what I'm about to show you. And I even had an unexpected problem to boot on this. So what I'm going to try and do here. Oh, wait a minute. I gotta stop sharing that screen. Sorry about that. I forgot what I was doing. Shame on me. All right. Anyway, I just hope this thing doesn't shut off again. Anyway, so I'm back in here. Now, I'm gonna minimize that screen and maximize that screen, and I'm going to pray a little bit, and you'll find out why. This is a Linux flash drive with 1 or 2 gigabytes of persistent space. For you to even see this required me to set up the Wi-Fi already, in part, and to load, well, first download Zoom, install it, and then eventually bring it up here on this computer. This is another computer from the one I was just on. I'm trying to spread the load, and I'm hoping this makes things easier for me. So I'm going to minimize that. Basically speaking, the clock I didn't set, which already says March the 1st. Haha, okay. So I'm going to come over here to the Linux Start button. I'm going to go to the settings. I'm going to go to date time. I'm going to click on the map about here. You got the right one. I'm going to turn off 24-hour clock. I'll turn on display the date. What the hell? And down below here, Tuesday, February 28th, 8:06 p.m. Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
What science thinks up. Anyway, the other thing is, here's the Wi-Fi icon. This is only with the passphrase. I'm using the ISP's DNS at the moment. So I'm going to click on it, network settings. It comes up here, I hit the gear. Whoop. Darn it, I hate it when it does that crap. Boy, that frosts me. They jump all over the place. They steal focus, and I hate it. Anyway, all right, now I'm in here. Yeah, go unstable yourself. I'm going to come to IPv4. I did set it up. I take that back. So I just stuck in the 1. I hit the plus sign. I put in the secondary. You can actually keep putting in DNS addresses so that if this site failed, it would go to the next ISP set of addresses and try them out. That I can't believe would happen very often. But anyway, and then I just hit the apply button, and those 2 settings are now remembered. And how I did Zoom. Let's see if I can grab that one. All I did was Zoom. Oops. I can't type with a darn at the moment. Download pound client. I did it on the Linux. So it says Zoom desktop for Linux. I come down here to the little arrow. I select Mint. It doesn't really matter. You're getting a .deb file anyhow. And I click download. I'm not going to do it because it's already been done. And I'm going to close that. Oh, I don't. Oh boy. Hey, I'm amazed. I'm still on Zoom. Anyway, I didn't want to close that browser. I wanted to just minimize it. Anyway, we have here now Zoom running. How did I get there? I come over to the file icon. I click it, bring up the file manager, go to the downloads. Here's Zoom. I right click and say open with gdeb package installer, and it'll go through the install process. I'm gonna bring it up. It'll instead of saying install, it'll say reinstall, which I'm not going to do. And unfortunately, it takes a little while to figure out how to unpack the damn thing and get all this in place. Okay. Now, like I said, it says reinstall because it's already been installed. You would see install and you could install it. The next step that I did was get this icon on the panel. So I hit the start button, internet, there's Zoom. I right click Zoom and add to panel. That's it. So there's three things right off the bat that I would do. If this did not have persistent storage, as soon as I did a restart or shutdown, it forgets everything I did in setting up date time, the Wi-Fi, and putting Zoom on, period. Now, the file I downloaded would not exist. So I'd have to re-download Zoom and go through the install process each time. That's the reason for using the portable version that has persistent storage. So, does anybody have any questions at this point of trying to use a flash drive?
Can you use this on a different PC?
It don't matter. It's a flash drive. If you
Yeah,
can plug it
but
in.
now let's say that you go to a neighbor's and you put it in, it's not going to have the right Wi-Fi.
Oh, wait a minute. Stop for a second. First off, you're going to somebody else's computer. Hopefully they got enough horsepower. Hopefully they got a USB 3 port
Yeah,
that you plugged into. If they've got Ethernet on it, because it's a desktop, then it will automatically connect to the internet.
right,
But if they've got Wi-Fi, it's not going to connect because it doesn't know the name of their connection or the passphrase.
right,
So there, you have to find out what's the name of, in my case, 5 gigahertz band on my systems. I plug that in, and then I put in the passphrase for that band on that router, and it will work with the ISP's
Right.
DNS. It does not know about the other DNS, the open DNS. So that's one of the differences.
yeah. If you click on the little Wi-Fi signal down there, it'll come up with, it'll show what's available in that area then.
That's right, 100% correct. And if you want to put the DNS in, you can. Just click on the Wi-Fi again, bring up that one screen. You'll see the little gear on the one you have selected and are on right now. You click the gear, you go to the IP4 or the IP6 and put in the appropriate primary and secondary addresses, hit apply, and now you have a slight improvement in performance depending on the area that person is in, or if it's in your house, what the performance of your ISP is for
Right.
DNS lookups. The internet only works with numbers, and that's what DNS does. It translates your URLs for any website into numbers, patches that in, and connects you up. So we're by me changing the DNS addresses, that gives you a slight performance boost quite often when the internet's very busy. Okay, so I'm going to leave this computer and pray that this one doesn't mess up.
Now DNS isn't like VPN then.
Pardon?
The DNS is not the same as VPN.
VPN is completely different. It's a virtual private network. And Those are two separate animals, and you have to
Right.
be careful with VPNs because some sites won't let you even in.
Right.
Ah, God. Okay. Now, uh,
DNS is a routing table that's in your hardware to show the paths that the signal goes through to make the connections.
a little bit off on that, Peter.
A little bit off, maybe. I'm
Uh,
a little
Bottom
rusty.
line, DNS is, think of the old telephone company. You used to have to call an operator to find out somebody's telephone number or even make the connection through the operator. It's a directory lookup of URL addresses and what their corresponding numeric address is. All ISPs have DNS servers, but they get overloaded very, very easily. And I'm not joking when I say that. That causes a degradation and slowdown of you getting to the web pages you want to get to. And so by using the open source DNS, I minimize that delay feature and get to my web pages faster than a lot of times you can through your ISP's DNS servers. So that's one of the gotchas, I guess is the best way I can put it. Now, let's see if I can get back into my presentation. I'm asking myself a lot, but this is a lot of material to cover. All right, this is option 2 that I'm starting to show you. An alternative to using a flash drive is to run on Windows or a Mac by setting up a virtual environment. This is not as scary as some think, and it doesn't have to be overcomplicated either. There are a number of different ones to choose from. The most popular are VirtualBox and the free version of VMware. I consider VMware to be for those that have extensive need and use of virtual environments over having just a few with VirtualBox. You still need to download the Linux ISO, as explained earlier in the presentation. You do not need Rufus or other flashing program like Etcher as an example. Need to download and install your choice of virtual environment. You will need available space on your internal drives for virtual images. Every OS like Linux or etc. that you want to put in the virtual environment take a certain amount of physical disk space. And so if you're kind of limited on the amount of space you've got, that's going to be a big issue. You might even have to upgrade to a larger drive, clone your existing drive to the new drive, and then use the new drive, and you can reuse the old drive for something else. We are focusing here on VirtualBox, which has lots of support on the internet and YouTube. So if you run into problems, you should be able to do searches on the internet in general, or go to YouTube and get a lot of information with videos to deal with almost anything that comes up. Virtual machine software. I'm using Oracle VM VirtualBox to download the software from. I am focusing on VirtualBox, even though there are many other options. We will download 2 pieces of software that work together for one virtual machine. This is a brief overview of a virtual environment. I hope my other machine is working so you can see it. Generally speaking here, I have on this image Mint loaded up. it gives you some icons here in the center of the top area. If I just want that one machine to start up, I just hit the start button and it goes. Or I can double click this and start it up. If I want to put a new version on, I hit the new button. And then there's settings and adding, and it gets more complicated. Most of what you want, you just need new and the start button. You might need settings every now and then. And it's listing here for this virtual machine my settings. You can't see them all because they wouldn't all fit on one screen. So this is a Ubuntu operating system, they call it, even though it's Mint. I have a base memory I gave it of 6 gigabytes. I'm using 2 of 4 processors cores. I do have an optical drive and a hard drive. I have nested paging. It calls KVM privatization. I don't understand that completely because KVM is a Linux-only virtual environment, and this is running on a Windows computer. Display, it's ambiguous. It only has a small amount of video memory because you're not doing games and high-resolution photos and video, etc., etc. Storage, I have, they call it an IDE, but it is SATA. It doesn't tell you whether it's a SATA 1, 2, or 3. And the virtual environment right now is a size of 25 gigabytes. That's the default. One piece of advice on virtual machine environments is to keep your size realistic, because if you get it too big, it starts slowing things down on your system, just like it does with a flash drive, which with too much persistent storage. And it goes on from there. Launching a virtual machine. When it first starts launching up, it starts showing you little event messages. It captured my keyboard. It now captured the mouse. It now also is showing you that Linux Mint is starting up. Note the bottom here. These are all icons for the various settings. Some of these can be adjusted, but not usually while it's running. Now Mint is up and ready for me to log in. And here's Linux up and running. And note, in the upper left quadrant, I have no icon for installing media. That tells you this is not the flash drive. This is an installed version, whether it's in a virtual machine or a physical hard drive the computer will boot up from. Again, I could, within the virtual environment, go to the internet connection settings and change those. I can change the date, time settings. I can put a download Zoom. I didn't on this one. And take and put the icon down on the panel. Pardon me. Here is the Oracle VirtualBox actual machine. You can literally copy this whole URL and paste it into a browser tab and go directly to this page. You see down here platform, Windows, Mac OS, this is Intel version. And you have Mac OS Apple Silicon, but it's currently in beta 4 release. That means most of the bugs should be worked out, but it doesn't mean all bugs are worked out. So you have to download your poison, and it will assume that you want 64-bit. I can't show you the actual scroll down that I'm going to do, but the next section starts off Linux VirtualBox distributions. And so the next slide only shows you the bottom versions of Linux. And at the bottom, you have VirtualBox Extension Pack. That's the other one you want to download, but they work two different ways. Installation of VirtualBox. You're going to open up File Explorer. Click the Downloads folder. Now, this is where it gets tricky because a lot of people with Windows don't know some of the tricks I'm trying to explain. So you'll have to wait and see what I'm talking about. Click the title line labeled Date Modified. Near the top of the list, you should see the two files you just downloaded from VirtualBox. Double-click the VirtualBox program to start the installation. Return to the File Explorer window and double-click the downloads and click the title line labeled Name. That puts it back to the way it was when you first brought it up. And then you can launch your VirtualBox program. So here's File Explorer. If you look at File Explorer, there's this column header. I click on Date Modified. That puts the most recent date downloads at the top and the oldest stuff at the bottom. I'm looking at the VirtualBox win.exe. I double click it. It will start launching the installation process. When I am done, I come back to File Explorer, click on Name, and it puts it in the normal everyday order that most people see the content in. Next, I launched VirtualBox after the install, and we want to do the extension pack. This is the only way to get it in. And the extension pack release has to match the VirtualBox version you just installed. You click this menu icon I'm pointing to here with the red arrow first. It drops down a little menu. Click on Extensions, and it changes to this. You click the Install button, and it'll bring up File Explorer and show you the extension you downloaded. You click on that, click the Open button, or you can change that to double click this line and it'll automatically open it. And it gives you an option to install the extension pack. You have to say install or it does nothing. Then you get a license agreement. You've got to scroll all the way to the bottom, on the right hand side, and click on I agree for this to continue working. When you come back, you see this screen here, and it shows you the package installing. On a decent running system, it will come back and be done within less than a minute or two at most. So afterwards, I close out VirtualBox. I relaunch VirtualBox. I go to the tool menu, click on the menu icon, and it shows me I have VirtualBox extension pack installed. I'm ready to go. So This is generally what you would see on a virtual machine first launch and you haven't installed anything yet. So keep praying, and maybe the third machine will still be working and I can demo that a little bit. All right. Now, who cares? All right. Screw. Dang. I forgot to mute this. All right. Phew. Sorry about that. You didn't want your hearing anyhow. All right. And I'm going to turn that off. All right. Now let's see if I can frustrate myself. I'm going to share that. And I'm going to minimize that. And I put, besides the virtual box here, I've got it down on my taskbar. This is Windows 10. And I'm going to launch, I hope. All right, I got my virtual box. So I'm going to click on the new. And it wants to know, what am I going to call this virtual machine? And it could be really anything, but you want it descriptive enough so you know what the heck it is 6 months from now. So I'm going to call it Mint 21. I'm not going to put in the decimal point stuff. And it wants an ISO image. So I'm going to click there, and it didn't find it. So it's looking here for user name that I'm logged into, VirtualBox MEs, and it's not finding it. So I gotta do a little bit of rummaging around. It brought up the Explorer. I want to go into downloads, and I don't see it there. So I'll look under distros. I don't have anything under distros on this user, on this machine. So this is where you have to have some knowledge of any operating system. I don't care what it is. So I'm going to go into the C drive. I go down to the users folder, expand it. This is the guy I'm logged in with. This is the administrator. You won't see this caret here because it will come up if I click on it for the first time. It wants administrator rights to access the administrator's information. So you will end up being challenged to put in the administrator's password. Then it gives you access, and these are what's out there, just like on the regular user. And I'm looking here, and downloads is not showing anything there either. Lucky me. So I've got to punt and stick in a flash drive that I hope I can get to. Darn it. I can't get to it from there. I gotta back out, get in here, other, get a new refresh of the screen. Should be the F drive, but it's not showing me everything. Ooh, disappeared. it's not showing me that. Darn it. I knew something had to go wrong. Trust me, it took me days, lots of hours to get that presentation. Here we go. Here's a Linux Mint 21 distro. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to double click on it. Excuse me. And I hope it transfers down to here. Darn ya. It's looking for the virtual and the ISO image, and I've got to get it to find other there it is. Got it. Got it. Now, what this is here, this is where it's storing the virtual image. All right. Now, so I got that. It says skip unintended install. I don't bother with that. There are reasons for doing it and not doing it. And it wants to know what the username is. Now, right now, it's set up as VirtualBox. I don't like that. I don't like to call myself VBox user. So I'll highlight it. Oops. Most Linuxes want to be in lowercase only. It's set up some kind of a password. Huh! Change me. That's a good password. And I'm going to put in simple, and it says the host name is Mint21, etc. And installation in background, I don't usually do that. Guest add-on. I think this only really applies if you're installing Windows as a virtual machine, whether it's on Windows, Mac, or Linux. And so I'm going to see if I can continue. No, I take that back. I think you have to have that. No? I'm missing something. Ah, got a red diamond. I'm not sure what it's wanting here, so I'm going to go back. I'm going to skip the unintended. Next. Okay, now it's asking me for hardware. How much memory am I going to give it? I've got 16 gigs in. Right now it's set up for 2 gigabytes. I'm going to up that to 6. CPUs. I've got 8 equivalent CPUs. That means I can up this to 4, because I'm only going to do one virtual machine at a time. I could change this and say 2 cores or 4 cores. It's kind of up to me. If I want to try and run 2 machines, I might go 2 and 2 and leave 4 for the host. And on memory, instead of 6, I might go 4 gigs. And for Linux, that's perfectly fine. It's happy as all get out. Enable EFI, like it says, special cases only. It's usually not needed. So, create a hard disk. It defaults to 25 gigabytes. It says up here to maximum of 2 terabytes. Trust me, there ain't 2 terabytes in the machine. So that's an impossibility. But you have to be very cautious how much you go past the default. Because if you start getting too big, you're trying to do too much on that machine, and it's going to start running like a dog. Pre-allocate full size. I don't do it, leaving it dynamic allocation. Use an external, an existing virtual hard disk file. I don't have one. That's why I'm creating it. And do not add a virtual hard disk. That to me doesn't make sense, but I'll leave that for another time. This is a summary of what it's going to set up right now. And it only applies to the machine name, etc., how much memory, how many processors, disk size, default, and I'm not going to pre-allocate the whole 25 gigabytes. It will grow on its own as needed. Finish, and I now have theoretically installed the whole machine. This gives you your other settings you couldn't see before. So I'm going to click here and hit start button.
Isn't there a button you can hit to make the display larger? Because it can read.
Oh, good. I'm glad you can't. Hang loose. You got to play. This is a real screen. Does that look familiar? Now, there is a setting, and I got to find it first. No, wait a minute. Hang loose.
There you go.
No! Quit looking at it. All right. Now, this is just as if I had the image of the ISO on a flash drive. This is the same setup process. Only it's going to do an install at the same time it's playing with the ISO. So what you end up with is an installed version as though it was an actual physical drive. And I'm going to X out of these to get rid of that events window.
If you click that little box up at the right.
Oh, I just saw Chicago stuff. Vallis has got 35% vote so far. I couldn't read the other three fast enough, but I think Johnson was second, Lightfoot was third, and I don't know who was fourth. Anyway, now, see, it's saying connection established. Why? Because this is a desktop machine with Ethernet. So this is Ethernet. So if I click on here, well, it's not. You got to remember, sometimes there's a lag in performance. Come on. Well, I'm going to leave that part alone. We have the install now. So I'm going to click on it. I'm going to install it not in 3 partitions, just as a single partition, because doing it in a virtual machine with multi-partitions is a little tougher than it looks. And I haven't done it yet. There are some tricks to doing it. So let's see what evolves here. So this is as though I were playing with a flash drive that the ISO was transferred onto, and I'm now installing it completely. Do you want a foreign language that I can't read?
No.
And I guess we'll keep that the same too, for some reason. Come on. As you can see, this isn't the fastest thing in the world. Install a multimedia codecs. I'm going to skip it. But if you want to play videos, you may need them. So I'm just pointing that out. This is all tests for me. And that's the thing. Practice makes perfect. And it's the fastest way of learning this is actually doing it. If you don't do it, you can't learn it real well.
That's what I learned by the multiple times that I reloaded and redid. So
That's right.
I got that all down.
Now, this is the one I don't understand why erase the disk. There's nothing there. It's a virtual. And you have advanced features, which I haven't looked at yet. The something else is where you would try and put in the 3 separate partitions. I'm
Right.
not going to play with that right now. This is a demo to begin with. We're running out of time. So, I'm going to probably use this one here. And I'm not that familiar with the ZFS file structure. And I'm not going to play with encrypt. That doesn't make any sense to me, at least in my situation. And install. This is, think of this right now, what I'm creating as strictly alternative method of getting a learning environment now. So I can start really doing something with Linux and learning at the same time. If you don't do that, I'm not sure why you're here.
There you go.
And it thinks I'm in New York. Well, I don't quite think so.
There you go.
Well, forgot TIM. Yeah, weak password, who cares? I might blow this away right after I get done with the meeting. Yeah, it's going through putting the content equivalent of the flash drive into the virtual disk image as the actual content grows within the bounds of 25 gigabytes. I can't explain it beyond that. What it will be doing is a swap file versus a swap partition when you do it in the single glob. The single glob is fine for learning. You don't want to do things you want to keep when you are in a learning environment. It is whatever you do in the learning environment. Hey, if you screw up, you recreate it. If you don't necessarily back it up, okay? It's not that hard. And the practice of resetting it up again is a good thing. It reinforces what you should already know. So don't be afraid of blowing it away and having the one partition. Now, when you set it up on a permanent hard drive or SSD, now you want to consider putting in separate partitions. And there's some gotchas. I normally set up for the 3 partitions, but now I have had one installation of Linux where I had to create a 4th boot partition. And playing with bottles and KVN, I am on Linux, and I haven't gotten to that very much. I'm way behind where I wanted to be. Those may require you creating another partition for the VAR folder, because that's where Bottles and its virtual machines and KVM store their stuff. So it may be a case where that needs to be another partition. If you haven't got something right now, don't even think about it. If yours works with 3 partitions and you don't need a boot partition, count your blessings. Unless you get into bottles to run Windows programs on Linux, or you get into virtual machine KVM on Linux, don't worry about creating a VAR folder partition. So as you see, we're actually not doing too bad. We're close to the end of time, but I only have a little bit more beyond what I already have shown you. And it's mostly installing Zoom, which I gave you a demo of anyhow, so we don't need to go through it. So basically, when I get done with this here and do a couple things on this virtual machine, it will be getting the PowerPoint, which is Impress, though it's got a PowerPoint extension, and a PDF of the slides. If you guys notice any incorrect verbiage and or spelling errors, missing words, stuff like that, let me know so I can adjust the PowerPoint and create a new PDF. I was hoping some of the people that started showing up last time would show up tonight, but I wasn't expecting the problem with having the passcode. So I'd like to shoot Zoom for that one. Actually, for the way this is all working, the funny thing is, the system I'm recording the meeting on, which is what I started out with, is unsupported Windows 11 recording the meeting. This is a machine right next to it with Windows 10, but it has an AMD processor, so it has hyper-threading on the cores. That's why it says there's 8 cores. If I did the same thing on the unsupported Windows 11, it has 4 physical cores, no hyper-threading, and therefore I would be dividing 4 cores, 2 cores for the host, 2 cores for the virtual machine. But the amount of memory on both machines is the same. I hope this gives a starting point for some folks that say they want to learn Linux. Hopefully those that didn't show up see the video, and if they want the PowerPoint and PDF, they're going to have to contact me for them.
Are you going to put that out on the chat?
No. I think at least I wasn't planning on it, let's put it that way. Hang on a minute here. I'm attempting. Let's see if I can find the 2 files. Okay. Well, I guess I could put them out there. One's 6 megabytes and one's 12 megabytes. Um, let's see here. Let's see if I can do some damage while that's still going.
Now this DNS, that was open source. What was the website for that?
Yeah, it's in the slides, unless I deleted it. It's opendns.com. That's all it is.
OpenDNS.com. Okay.
Okay. One of these I can't send you this minute. The PowerPoint itself. I'll
Okay.
send the PDF, and I have to wait until I close down the demo. Okay. Hang on a minute. Oop. Dumb. Okay. PDF should be out there now. The PowerPoint, as soon as I shut it down, I can send that out too. Assuming I still got it. Since I'm not going to show you the last piece of it, I don't care. I'm going to shut it down and see if I can send it. Oh, got to close that off first. All right, now let's see if I can send the PDF, PowerPoint. Yeah. Okay. The PowerPoint will be out there in a second or two. So you should have both. They're in the chat.
Yep.
Anybody else who wants it's got to contact me and I'll email it to them. Okay. Now it says to restart or continue testing. Understand, this is in the setup mode. I could continue learning in this environment or restart now. So I'm going to restart now. Now, this is the message you would get. Anytime you shut down the flash drive installation, you get, please remove the installation medium, the flash drive, and press enter. Well, there's nothing there, so I just press enter. It goes back to VirtualBox. And let's see what we get up. Come on. Now you gotta understand, what you're seeing are two machines running at the same time on the same physical device. So I got Windows 10 running, and here's my Linux Virtual. And again, connections automatically established because it's Ethernet. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'll just minimize that. If I want to, I'll go to Start button, Settings, Date Time. It's Chicago amazingly, and I'll change that. It's already saying I got updates. Gee whiz. And I'm going to get out of that. I'm going to come here. I'm going to, whoops, I right clicked by accident. This is a left click, network settings. I'm going to, it's not giving me, well, that's a first. Well, I'm not going to play with the DNS right now. It makes no sense. And if I were to bring up the browser, I can install anything I want to, because this works like an install version. And I'll go here, zoom.us, download CLIE client. Come on. Come on. See, I'm using my ISP's DNS, and it's not always the fastest. What the heck did that thing do? It was trying to finish a setup when I didn't want to do the setup. So let's see if this works any better. And I got updates. That ain't no surprise. This is version 21, not 21.1. But at least here I can do the updates, and that works fine. I can upgrade it to 21.1 at any time also. Well, for some reason I'm not getting out like I would have thought. This thing wants to do its thing, its way. Let's see if it does anything. There, got something. All right. Wow. It's supposed to be sharing the internet, and it did since I got this. I wonder if that's the error. Maybe it's downloads and I'm not remembering right. I still think it's just download. Well, it don't want to work, but you get the general idea. I download it, open up files. Come on, go to downloads. I would have the icon here, right click it, and do the first line, which is install the GDebi installation package. And when it was all done, I would then go to the start button, find internet, see zoom in here, right click it, and say add to panel. So I did correct the date, and I have a few other issues here, but I am not that familiar with it. Now see, that's another problem. This thing is wanting to close down the virtual environment. I'm going to cancel that. I clicked on the wrong thing. If you notice, there's two X's. So I'm going to click that one, and because it was the file manager. This was the screen. If I click there, it shuts down, and it's trying to prevent you from shutting it down incorrectly. So I'm going to come over here, say shut down. We're back to here. That's it. Now, I don't know if that's expandable. Some are expandable, some are not. There's a little bit better, but don't expect miracles offhand. And there isn't much there. Normally you would not read this here. This is what you set up. It's just repeating it. This here is the actual virtual machine. If I took another distro of Linux, let's say an Arch Linux as an example, I would have a second line here with that Linux's package name, and I could have either one going. If I've got enough resources, I might have two on this machine here going, whereas on my unsupported Windows 11, I would only have one virtual machine running at a time. So that's the difference between different systems, and you're going to have to learn to figure out your hardware enough to know what you are capable of doing. But on that Windows 10 machine, I don't know that I want to try it, but I could attempt to run two virtual machines on Windows 10 on one physical device. That would be a trip by itself. Anybody got any questions?
I seem to be having trouble trying to get this saved, out of the chat.
You go to the chat. Each item, there has a little down pointing arrow. You click on that. That's what saves it to your system.
No, it's not showing that. It says click to download. When I click to download, nothing happens. There's three little hamburger things to the right. When I click on it, it says download. I click on download. Nothing's happened on that. One of them looks like it's got a little check mark, green check mark.
Yeah.
So it looks like it's apparently downloaded. It says click to open.
Okay, you got one, so now you got to go
Yeah.
to the other file and try and download it.
That's what I've been doing.
They're one at a time.
Yeah.
And
Apparently,
you're on. Are you on the Linux machine?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that may be a factor also. I didn't
Yeah,
try. I didn't try
yeah.
doing this chat with the downloads on a Linux box.
Well, it looks like one of them did, so it's now clicked to open.
Well,
There it is.
It's either the PDF or the PowerPoint.
Here it comes up. LibreOffice Writer. Choose
Yeah.
an application to open.
Okay, that's because LibreOffice, that's probably the PDF file, and it has to open that, if I remember right, in Draw, the Draw
Okay.
program. So you haven't got the PowerPoint,
Yeah.
and that
no.
opens up in Impress.
Yeah, it says document in use. It doesn't
That
like
means
it.
it's not fully downloaded yet, and that may be why you can't get the other one.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
I don't
Dennis, are
know.
you going to take a shot at this? Or did we put you to sleep?
I'm not really interested in doing a virtual box thing, and
This is
I
why I
really,
gave two options.
yeah, I really didn't want to. Wasn't that much interested in the flash drive. I don't think. I just want to get a computer, converted over to it. Is what I was trying to shoot.
No, you have to use the flash drive. That's how you get it, the ISO onto the flash drive, and then you go through the install on the machine you want to install it on. Period. That's its function.
Well, I thought you were running it off the flash drive in this.
I
whole-
did run it off the flash drive. I can use that as a beginning learning platform. But its primary purpose is to install that version of whatever OS it is onto another machine. And if you got 20 machines, you got a few less than I do, you could install that same flash drive image on all of them. It's not that big a deal. You do exactly what I did in the flash drive. I mean, the virtual environment. It brought up the ISO image directly, not from a flash drive. It showed you the install icon I've pointed out twice at least. You double click that to begin the install process, not onto a virtual machine drive, but onto a physical drive. But that's where, in my opinion, you install it with a root partition, a home partition, and a swap partition, like I originally showed you guys. But it's your first foray into this, just like Wayne did, and putting one glob out there, fine. Accept it and start learning Linux. Yeah. Then, at some future time, you can blow that all away by reinstalling, but do it the separate partitions. You got to take baby steps when you don't know what the hell you're doing to start with.
That's why it took me 3 or 4 times.
That's
but
right.
each time you get a little bit more understanding what's going on.
Right. You're not going to get it all in one shot. That's
No.
impossible, Dennis. It doesn't happen.
Well, you know you're not going to hurt anything because you're starting out with a blank disk to be. Well, I had a blank disk to begin with, but each time you do it, it wipes it out and starts over.
Right, which is fine. No big deal. It's a learning process. If you didn't do it right the first time, you keep trying until you get it right. And that's all there is to it. The whole thing. Well, you don't know Linux.
Yeah.
You really have no clue yet until you start working with a real live Linux of some kind on some kind of a platform. So I started off with a flash drive. It's a live flash drive. You can learn a lot on that, but not everything. The virtual gives you an emulation of a real install to a physical drive. And the third step would be actually installing it to a physical drive. All those are learning steps, and you build from one to the next, to the next, to the next. Anybody else got anything?
Well, the Zoom works pretty good on Linux here.
Yeah, it usually does work pretty good. Why in the virtual environment it wasn't letting me download and set it up at the moment, I don't know. Sometimes you run into glitches. Like I said, Firefox, I think, wanted me to go through some setup crap, and until that's done, it doesn't want to play nice. Because I did get Chicago Computer Society to come up, or there's something else that's slowing down downloading Zoom so you can install it. But it would install no matter what.
Yeah, it just doesn't like to download that PDF. I don't know what the problem is, but...
Well, I'm in Mint. I got both the PDF and the PowerPoint. However, my LibreOffice, I have upgraded to the most recent version.
Mine's on 7.5 or something like that.
Yeah, but the thing is, 7.3 is the default in Mint right now.
Yeah, but when I created it, it was on a machine with the most recent release.
Yeah. Well, mine is too. Mine is 7.5, but 7.3 is what ships.
That That could be a problem too. But he just did an update. He just did an update that should have put in the most recent version of LibreOffice.
Yeah.
That does not necessarily apply to Mint. Mint and Ubuntu are both very conservative in the version of LibreOffice they use. They are usually at least one version behind.
Maybe that's part of the problem.
I don't think it is, because the download would be the same. It might not open in LibreOffice.
Yeah, but I think there's a
The
default.
file would be there.
I would think there's a default reader for PDF files anyhow. But if you
It would be the one that needs Impress that might not open.
Yeah.
There is a document viewer in Mint, at least in mine.
right, and usually there, like I say, usually there is, but in LibreOffice, normally you have to open a PDF in Draw, and the PowerPoint presentation opens up in
Impress. Let me just see if I'm calling myself out on this. No, it opened.
I've got LibreOffice 7.3.
Yeah, that's what ships.
Yeah, that's what's in here.
Yeah, but I wouldn't think there's anything that I put in either one that wouldn't work on 7.3. I'm not joking. I'm not a good person on creating PowerPoints to start with. This is more than 2 or 3 times the previous largest one I did, and over the course of 10, 15 years, I've done exactly half a dozen PowerPoints.
Well, it looks to me as though what I got downloaded does open where it's supposed to and shows what it's supposed to.
Okay. So it should probably work on yours, Wayne. I don't understand what's going on.
If you can download.
Well, the Linux, the PPTX looks like it's got a green check mark on it. It says
That's downloaded.
says click to open, but on the other one it keeps saying click to download,
Well,
and it just won't download.
That's a PDF. That's the first file.
I know,
That should be easier. It's half the size,
right?
too. Of,
I
the other.
agree.
Yeah.
But
Well,
you
it
should
just-
be able to open up the PPTX file in LibreOffice Impress.
If you go into chat and you hover the mouse over the PDF, you will probably see 3 icons on the upper right alongside of it, and one of them says copy, so you might be able to do it that way.
It says download.
Yeah, you can download, but there should also be one way over on the right,
Yeah,
outside of the box, that should say more, and then
more.
if you right click on that, it's got the word copy.
It keeps going up. Keeps showing up. When I click on the more, it shows download.
Oh, okay.
But when I click on download, nothing happens. I've been doing it for 15 minutes.
Well, Tim's got your
My
email.
download went to my documents folder
Yep.
rather
It'll-
than the download folder.
It'll either go to Documents, Downloads, or Zoom, depending on how you're set up. And I would also like to mention that Zoom is now up to version
1310.
1310.
Okay, because my air compressor's on, I'm gonna mute again, and I'm gonna say the aloha now for when you finally do hang up.
All right. Aloha.
Aloha. Well, whatever the problem is, it's not working. So
Yeah, you might have an older version of Zoom.
As long as
Yeah.
you got the PPTX, if you open up Impress and bring that document into Impress, you can do a file export as a PDF. and get the same file.
Yeah.
All right. I don't. Does anybody else have anything else? It's already half past, practically. If not, maybe we ought to call it a night.
Okay, very good.
All right.
Good presentation.
Well, next month I may try and do an actual